Oh man, my butt really hates this chair.
Sorry to your butt.
Me too, man, me too.
Hey everybody!
Hi.
Welcome back to
The Drunken Library.
So we are here today to talk to you about a book that we read.
Surprisingly enough.
Yeah, we read a book that is 1/3 of the channel name. Because the is a word. Otherwise it'd be 1/2.
The is kind of like
It's like just a qualifier.
yeah, that's the word I was gonna use, but then I was worried it wasn't gonna be right. You know?
Dude, you're drunk.
Yes.
Anyway, so we did read a book.
We did.
It's one of my favorites. I think this is the 4th time I've read this book.
Wow.
Because I like to reread things.
When's the first time you read it? Because you hadn't read it
The first Tome Infinity and Beyond readathon in 2018.
4 times in
like
3
3-ish
years?
years. Not quite 2.5 years, because that was September of 2018.
Wow.
Because I love them.
And I'm new to the series.
So this will be an interesting journey for us.
It'll be an interesting journy for us. And so the book
Also,
we're actually talking about
Oh, fair enough. We did not do that.
is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers.
Yeah. Also, you're gonna get like basically no real information in this video. In case you guys didn't know what we do here, it's nothing useful. We get drunk
And we talk about books.
Yeah. But like that part, questionable.
I mean, we talk about books. We don't say anything useful.
Fair.
We'd be like, wow, this bitch did
Some shit.
stuff.
But yeah, no. So The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I love her. She's wonderful.
I loved this book. I was so hesitant to read it for a long time, right? Because I'm gonna stop putting my hand in front of my mouth when I'm trying to talk.
Dude, I don't even think about that. I touch my face and like put my hand in front of myself like so much.
Why did I find that the way that was phrased was strange?
Because you are strange.
Well, yes.
Anyway,
So
so you were hesitant to read this book.
I was hesitant to read this book for a long time because
It got a lot of hype on book.
it got a lot of hype. And I'm always nervous
Among the
about
like
hype.
adult sci-fi fantasy
Yeah.
crowd. It got a lot of hype.
Yeah, and I was like, what if I read it and I don't like it? Because, ironically, despite the Doctor Who shirt, I have a weird thing where I don't super duper love, like, space settings for stories. All the time. Sometimes I do. It depends.
Here's the interesting thing about Becky Chambers. Because all of the Wayfarers books and like the novella, To Be Taught If Fortunate Don't Die, they all like kind of take place, like the Wayfarers books all take place in like the same universe. The other book takes place in a different fictional universe that she creates. But they're all kind of space-ish. Like, one of them takes place on a ship, like fully on a ship, not in space at all. And then one of them is on a planet, and this one's kind of just in space in general. But they're all like space opera-y.
Yeah. And that's why I was nervous. I didn't think I would like it.
But that's not the point with her books.
Yeah.
At all. Like,
I know.
Becky Chambers is a character writer.
Yeah. And that I'm about. I'm about that shit. And like, so like, I was so nervous about reading it because I don't, here's the thing, I like sci-fi, but generally what I like about sci-fi is stuff set on Earth, set in like a world that I could like theoretically imagine, or an adaptation, alternate universe, that kind of thing. Love time travel, love future stuff, love past stuff.
Dystopians, things that take place in a world that
I can relate to in some way, I guess. So, space stuff for me is just like,
and these are kind of interesting in that way, because there are humans in them.
Yeah.
And they are humans several, like, centuries after we have destroyed the Earth.
Yep.
So, like, it is a conceivable thing, and, like, there are 2 different, like, kind of sets of humans. There are the humans who originally left Earth, and they're on the homesteader ships. Basically, like, they left Earth on these ships, and then they just never left them. Goodness.
You just shook our whole camera.
And then there are Martian humans who live on Mars. And that, if we were going to leave Earth, I think, are the two camps we'd break into.
Yeah.
People who are like, I don't want to leave this comfortable environment we created after we left Earth. Or the people who have always been like, oh, hey, we could live on Mars.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think would happen.
I think part of why I also did end up really loving this book, because I did, I think part of that is because of the humans and how I'm like, oh, okay, this is just a future. This is a potential future. And it made it easy. But also what I did love about it, and what, like, you kind of said right before we started reading it together, because she was like, it's one of my favorites. And I was like, I mean, I'm kind of interested, but also nervous. And she's like, but, like, you probably like it. And I was like,
well,
all
like,
right.
I know enough about your reading taste to be like, I'm pretty sure you'd like it.
And she's like, it's kind of like a slice of life story. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, that's my jam. So, as long as it has a fucking ending. Because like, shit doesn't have an ending.
Yeah, it does have an ending. But the interesting thing about this, and why I think maybe some people wouldn't like it, but, like, part of why I thought Amber would, is that, like, there are, like, specific events that move the plot forward, but, like, overall it's mostly slice of life, and nothing specifically super dramatic happens. Like, there are some dramatic events, but then the characters deal with them and move on with their lives.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times with this, they address, like, because it's based around a group of people who are the crew of a long-haul ship in space. So a lot of them moving on with their lives is literally dealing with the paperwork.
Yeah.
And it's literally like, oh, we have to do this thing. I did some research. Here's the papers we have to fill out. Now let's all move on. And then they just do. And then it's not a big deal after that. Cute. Yes. And so I just thought Amber would enjoy that, because Amber loves a slice of life story. Like, one of her favorite books of all time is Pride and Prejudice, which is just like a slice of life story. This is a slice of life story in space.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, I think part of what turns me off to, like, super space set stories is when it's, like, all about the ships, all about the technology.
Yeah, and this is for sure about the crew.
The people, yeah. And, like, not like humans, because it's not all humans.
No, but they are all people. And, like, and it's cool. Because what Becky Chambers does is each different, like, species, first of all, they're all distinct.
Yes.
They all have very specific cultures that she really fleshes out.
Yeah. Casually, though.
Yeah, casually. Like, it's like, there's really no, like, not a lot of, like, info dumpy stuff. Like, there are a few times where she'll, like, do that after, like, a character is first introduced. But for the most part, you get introduced to the world as, like, the character. She's not the main character, but she's the character that, like Rosemary. She's the character you enter the world with. Yeah. And, like,
you
learn things as she learns them.
Exactly. And then as you start to get familiar with the world through her, then it sort of branches out into, like, what another crew member is dealing with, what another crew member is dealing with.
And each of them, even the ones, because there are disproportionately more humans on board the ship than other species.
Yes.
But each of those humans has a different story and is dealing with different shit.
Yeah. And honestly, what's more, like, human than that? Everybody's dealing with shit all the time.
Yeah, I've actually recommended this book as, like, a sci-fi for people to get into if they really like, contemporary books.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because, like, what is a contemporary other than, like, people figuring out themselves and their relationships with each other? And that's what this is. And, like, even the characters who are, like, not humans, that's really what it boils down to.
Yep. And one thing that I really liked while reading this, and I'm drunk, and it's been a minute, and my memory's always a little iffy in general.
Sure.
But one thing, so I don't know that I was trying to say, I don't know if I have specific context or references, but I did notice and appreciate the way that Becky Chambers handles, like, different real life social justice issues. Thanks, Vincent.
Yep.
Through dealing with, like, the interspecies stuff.
Yeah, actually, do we mind an individual channel plug right now?
Go for it.
So I did a video on my channel a while back, and this book was the book that kind of prompted me to do it. But it was a book, or a video. I'm drunk also. based on how I rate sci-fi books, or like what it takes for me to rate a sci-fi book 5 stars.
Oh, okay.
And this book was an example I used, and it was basically if it can entertain me while also making me really think about things, like turning the mirror around and making me look at like how I see the world and how I could be better. And like we can, if we're feeling zesty, we can link that.
Yes.
And if not, we'll delete this and it won't matter. But
I mean, if we keep it, then like, yeah, because...
yeah.
Yeah.
That was part of what I liked about it, is like she deals with social justice issues in
Yeah.
a way, like there are different species and each species deals with discrimination in different ways. Like
Yeah.
the Andress, which the pilot of the ship, Sissix, she's wonderful.
I love her.
We love her. She's like the mother hen of everybody. She's so sweet.
She's fucking sassy, too.
She's sassy as shit, but she is from a culture that a lot of the human characters don't understand. And one of the other characters keeps like calling her a lizard. And that is considered like a slur.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, she's a reptilian
species. Yeah.
So, like,
and so,
yeah.
like, it's a lot of dealing with, like, you don't say that word on this ship. She doesn't need to talk to you if you say that word. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they don't shove it down your throat at all.
Yeah. It's
but
just like,
it makes you think like, oh, this is fucking horrible.
Yeah. And it's like, sorry, I keep trying to talk with like my face in front of me.
I keep wanting to like reference the second book, and
yeah, don't do that yet.
Trying not to.
Don't do that yet.
It wouldn't be a plot spoiler, but there are a lot throughout the whole series, and there's a little of it in this book, and there's more of it later on. But there's a lot of different like gender and sexual identities.
Okay.
For the different characters, and there are certain cultures within the universe that Becky Chambers has created where like that's just a thing. Like gender fluidity is just a thing.
Okay. See, yeah, and like my cats keep jumping on the table.
Yeah, we're gonna have shaky cam. It's fine.
Whew. But no, like, yeah, with like that, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, the captain of the Wayfarer, which is the ship on which the story like mostly revolves.
Yeah, and the series is named after the ship, which is weird because the ship is really only in this one.
Oh, okay.
Because each book follows a different set of characters and is in a different setting.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so like the captain of the Wayfarer, when one of the characters uses the lizard slur, he's just like, we don't do that. And what I really appreciated was like Becky Chambers was just like, no, we're not going to do this racist shit. We're not going to do this. We're going to, and just the character just shut it down. And I'm like, that is such a great example. Alonzo, why are you licking my finger?
And there are a lot of examples of them like stopping in different like ports and making different stops along their journey where they are exposed to people who live their lives in a different way than the crew does, and they just accept it.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, cool.
This is just how it is
or
here.
Or like when they end up on the moon cricket, which those characters are delightful.
Yep.
I would love to have a story that features like just those characters. But those characters just like welcome the whole crew in. Like they're friends with 2 of the crew members already.
Right. But then they welcome everybody in.
And like they end up getting kind of stranded there.
Yeah.
Because of like it's sort of like an inclement weather incident, but it's really not. But it gets treated in the same way as like a blizzard would.
Well, I saw it more as like an infestation of locusts, but they're like giant grasshoppers.
But for them, it's like a regular thing that happens like once or twice a year.
Yeah.
So I thought of it as like, oh, gotta hunker down because it's a fucking 12 inches of snow kind of thing.
Because that's what we would reference because it's Wisconsin.
But it's that kind of thing where they're just like, everybody just treats it like a vacation because like we deal with this all the time. But people they've never met are just kind of there and they're just like, yeah, hang out. Like, we'll feed you. Let's hang out. I'll get you a volunteer job because you seem interested in this thing. Like, and they're so welcoming and so nice. And it kind of shows you that, like, be accepting of alternate lifestyles, like things that you wouldn't necessarily be familiar with because, like, you could learn something. You could be enriched in some way.
Yeah. I also noticed, too, like, when Rosemary... I said I wasn't going to remember examples, and now I'm remembering examples. But when Rosemary joined the ship, and I don't remember who it was, but she was just like, oh, I'm going to refer to somebody as they because I haven't heard anybody use any pronouns. And she's like, I haven't heard anybody use any pronouns yet. And she's like, and why would you?
And they were using they, because they is the plural there. They have a
Right.
neutral pronoun. It's Z. It's like XE.
Yeah.
Z. And she uses that pronoun because she heard someone refer to them as they, and she thought that was weird.
Yep. And
so she said that.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, it's they. And she was like, oh, cool, great.
Yeah, and then she just rolled with it. And, like, when she did use the Z, she was like, I mean, because why would you use a gendered pronoun when you don't know what they use?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's so fucking brilliant. Like, why can't
we all just do
why
that?
can't we all just do that?
We were literally talking about that earlier today.
Yeah, and I was just like, it's perfect. And that's kind of what, like, reminded me to bring it up, too.
But yeah, and I don't know. And, like, Rosemary herself has, like, a bit of a history in her life.
It's not even, like, her fault.
No, it's not. But, like, your family can really affect you. As we all know.
Yep.
And she is running away from some shit that's going on with her family. And she decides that it would be best to hide her identity because her experience on Mars was that anybody who knew who she was and, like, who she was connected to stopped wanting to associate with her when all this shit went down with her dad.
Yep.
And so she hid her identity. She, like, paid for a new one. Spent all of her savings.
All of it.
And she goes on the ship, and then when her crewmates find out, they're just like, I mean, it's kind of fucked up you lied. They were like, but you didn't do anything, right? Like
you
so
really
why,
didn't do anything? And
so
she's like,
why would we why would we hold that against you?
Yeah. And it's just like, that's, like, why can't more people be judged for their own merit and not just, like, who they're associated with?
If I had to describe this book or this series in general with, like, one word, it would honestly just be wholesome.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so wholesome.
Yeah.
Like, everybody is just, like, the characters are all flawed. They all have some shit.
Like, anybody you ever meet in your entire life and yourself are going to be.
They all feel like they could be people you would meet, despite the fact that, like, they're different species and whatever. But they all generally have good motivations for what they do. Even the character we all hated the most from the beginning, the algaist, Corbin.
Yeah.
He terrible, but he comes around in the end.
Yeah,
and like, he does some things that are, like, kind of fucked up, but he does them for a good reason.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, I don't like what you did,
but I
get
understand,
why you did it.
Especially because he does explain. He's just like, look, I don't get this, you don't get this, but I have to do this way for everybody else's sake.
Yeah, and, like, it is fucked up.
It is fucked up. It's a question of consent is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And they address that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting and well done, I think.
Yeah. And I find it, I appreciated the way that overall, all of the things that we've been talking about, it really boils down to what I really appreciate is that overall, very serious subjects about social justice, stuff that's in the media today.
About not defining yourself by the people that you were raised by. Because that happens with Rosemary and with Corbin.
Yep. Oh, shit, yeah.
But, like, not doing that, or not letting your opinion of somebody cause you to, like, fuck up their life even if you have the opportunity to do so.
And, like, what it does, and what I think sci-fi has been about doing for a long time, and what I think this book does very well, is it addresses real life, real world issues through a context where you can sort of remove yourself from the stigma.
And it lets you look at it from the outside. And that's one of the things I like about sci-fi.
Yeah.
And there are other times that it's just escapism.
Yep.
But
this really, it addresses things that are important.
But in an entertaining way.
Yes. And it makes it kind of it hits home without, like, hitting you in the face with it.
Yeah, it's not being like, you suck, do better. It's just more like, hey, maybe reevaluate your relationships.
Let's be better people.
And what I like, too, because like I said, there are some, like, plot events that happen in here that are dramatic. Yeah. But they're not the point.
Yeah.
At all.
And what I also
like, they could honestly not happen. Yeah. And it wouldn't matter.
Like, it still kind of, like, drove the narrative a little bit.
Yeah,
but, like,
it moved the narrative along, but they were just kind of secondary. And, like, I'm more of a character reader than I am a plot reader.
Yeah. same.
And so for me, it was just more like, this is about the characters and their relationships with each other and their relationships with themselves and how they grow and learn and become better people in the context of like living a mundane day-to-day, like essentially just how they do their jobs.
Yeah. And additionally too, like, I lost my train of thought.
I mean, honestly, my opinion is just like, book good, love book.
I mean, I don't disagree.
I'm excited for you to read the next one because the next one is my favorite, although not most people's. It's my favorite.
I'm really interested to see where I fall in that. So,
and I won't be offended, obviously, but I think you'll like that one. I think you will because it's on a dual timeline.
I do love dual timelines. I really do.
And it, if possible, you get more character development in that one.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So
Anyway,
we're gonna wrap it up.
All around, read this book.
It's fantastic.
She's delightful.
I loved it as a newbie. And she loved it as a 4th time rereader.
If I've read something 4 times, you know I love it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't generally reread unless either I love it or I have a specific reason to. Like, I've read Jurassic Park twice. Which was rough. See our review on that if you want.
We'll link it.
But for the most part, if I don't have a good reason, unless I love it, I'm not rereading it.
Yeah.
Like, I will move on.
I've been wanting to reread stuff a lot lately, and like I've kind of gotten out of the habit because there's so much new stuff I want to read. But like I do want to reread stuff, so like. But yeah, no, I loved it. It was amazing, and I jumped on the ship. I'm not this ship, like the.
I mean, but you would though. I mean, if they weren't on this particular journey. Like, just to, like, hang out.
I mean...
Or just maybe go hang out with Kizzy and her dad's.
Yeah. My whole thing is outer space weirds me the fuck out.
Fair enough.
Deep space and deep ocean
Okay, you'll hang out.
freak me out.
You'll hang out
They
with the
freak
characters
me out.
in book 2, because they're on a planet.
Yeah. So, like... But, like, I jumped on the ship of, like, loving this book.
I'm down with this book, right?
Yeah. So, like... If you like good characters, even if you're like weird about sci-fi, like if you like a good character story, read this book. It's worth it.
Yeah, it's a good time. Like,
Yeah.
I recommend it to people who haven't really read a lot of sci-fi that are into characters and like contemporary stories, because the way the characters relate to each other is very similar to like a contemporary book. And I think that you could get into it because even not understanding, like, it's a fully fictional universe.
Yeah.
So it's not like inaccessible language or anything like that. That comes with a lot of more like hard sci-fi, because this isn't like hard sci-fi. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just a good time.
And any like new language, like
They explain
it.
Or you pick it up from context clues.
Exactly. And a lot of it is given in context clues, but like in a way it explains it very well without dumping the information on you. So I loved it. It's good world. You know what I kept thinking when I was reading it? I was like, she can build a world much like Octavia Butler.
Like, yeah, she's so good. Like, nobody did. It's so good.
Yeah. So.
But yes, so
check it out.
if you are interested at all, check it out. And then we'll link some videos for like either stuff we've talked about in this or stuff that's like relevant to this book. Yeah. In the description box. And other than that, whatever you do in life, please read responsibly.